Konbanwa. Konnichiwa. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Learn Japanese Pod. And you're listening to the Fun Friday edition. If you've never heard the Fun Friday edition, that's when we put down our Japanese textbooks and talk about everything to do with Japan or whatever we randomly think of. And today I'm joined by Tomo Akiyama. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you again.
Again, I mean, nice to see you again. Ohishashiburi. How's it going?
I'm good. It's been a while. I don't know what to start with.
Let's start with you. So I'll just tell everyone how I know you. I actually know you from a million years back in Tokyo. More recently, I've been following you on Twitter. And
Thank you.
If you haven't followed him, check out Tomo Akiyama. That's his handle. So TOMOAKIYAMA. Tomo Akiyama on Twitter. The most interesting Twitter person in Japan, in my humble opinion. Yeah, I've been following your tweets. They're hilarious. We'll get into them in more detail. But Tomo, for people who don't know you, who are you? What do you do? What's your story?
Let's see. I'm Japanese. I'm from here, technically, but I grew up outside Japan.
Yeah.
Namely France and the UK. That's where I spent my childhood. I shouldn't start from the beginning, should I? Well,
yeah.
In English, your biography starts from what you do now.
Yeah,
so,
right.
Okay. Well, in Japanese, it's the premise comes first. Anyway, so I am a corporate communication specialist. I've been in corporate communications for 9 years. I recently changed my jobs, and I now work for a car maker.
Oh, congratulations on the new job.
Thank you. It was a lot of work. Yes.
By the way, I should just mention we're drinking Miyazaki Hideji beer.
Yeah, nice. Citrus flavor.
Citrus flavor. So what do you think? Tastes good, right?
Yeah.
It's really good. Amazing beer. Anyway, sorry, as you were saying.
Okay, so yeah, I'm in corporate communications for almost 10 years. But before that, I was in the US. And that's where I taught Japanese for a few years. I still wish sometimes my full-time job was to teach Japanese.
That's so cool. Well, I'll be. I apologize in advance. I'm going to be asking you lots of annoying Japanese questions. So please, you have an opportunity now to teach us all Japanese.
Ah, great. You get paid for what making people listen to you. So yeah, the reason why I went to the U.S. when I was 22, after I graduated college here, was to study linguistics.
Cool.
Yeah, I grew up outside Japan, so language differences really bother me. But I was interested in different languages because we have such a hard time. Japanese people have such a hard time learning English and many European languages.
Right.
And I was wondering why. Linguistics can answer those questions.
Right.
So,
just to take a sidetrack, just really briefly, why do you think Japanese people have difficulty with English? Is there like a linguistic reason to this, or
it's vice versa? Your listeners who are learning Japanese, I'm sure they're having a lot of difficulties too, like I did for English, simply because they're different.
Yeah,
they're very different, very contrastive in terms of grammar, pronunciation as well.
The vocabulary doesn't overlap at all. At least with a European language, you have that common Latin-based vocabulary set, and anyway,
cognates, right?
Cognates, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's one major reason why Japanese is difficult for native speakers of English.
Yeah, it's and I know, definitely for listeners to the podcast, they're definitely pulling their hair out with the kanji, right?
Well, kanji is Chinese.
Right.
Don't blame us. It's we didn't invent them. We imported them.
Right.
Yeah. But again, if you look at the Japanese language, it's pretty simple.
Yeah.
We have 5 vowels.
Yeah.
Only 2 irregular verbs. And you don't have those stupid plural singular distinction or masculine feminine distinction like most European languages.
Absolutely, yeah.
Look at English. English has a lot of swim, swam, swum, read, read, read. You know,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
had to repeat that in when we were in junior high.
Buy, bought. Yeah,
that. Yes. Yeah.
Do you
Ride
think?
road. Yeah.
Do you think that's partly because we're kind of a mishmash of various languages that have historically come together, you know, over many centuries, and then Japanese is maybe relatively, I don't want to say pure, but
Let's see. Japanese is a mishmash too.
Really?
Yes. English too. Yeah, but the English being so difficult to Japanese people,
Right.
is I think it originates in that complicated history of the language.
yeah.
But Japanese too. Like, you know, I used to often explain to my students that think of Chinese, well, Middle Chinese to be more
Right,
precise, as an equivalent to Latin and Greek in
Right,
English.
right.
You know, back in old times, Chinese was the only written language in East Asia.
Yeah.
And all those abstract terminologies in politics and science were all in Chinese.
Right.
Whereas we have words for like dogs, eyes, ears,
Yeah.
food,
Right.
in our native Japanese language. So
and also, I mean, that's also reflected in the way the accounting systems have developed,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So, you know, you've got ichi, ni, san, and they've got hitotsu, futatsu, mitsu, yotsu.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like, imagine you accounting things mono, bi, tri,
Right.
tetra,
Yeah.
5.
Yeah.
You know, just go back and forth.
I've just learned something now. I've learned that actually Japan is maybe as much, perhaps, of a mishmash as English is, or it's similarly, you know, a lot of the languages come from.
When I was in
Different
graduate
places.
school, I wrote a paper about the genetic affinity of Japanese.
Wow.
And I don't think you should get me started.
Okay, I just want to hear your opinion on this. They say it's pretty common knowledge that Korean and Japanese have very similar grammar, right? And so that this is partly why Koreans really kick ass when they learn Japanese. They can pick it up really quickly. However, I've also heard that the grammar is similar to Turkish, and it's also similar to Finnish,
Right.
and no one knows why. Like, is it just complete coincidence, or is there some kind of historical reason for that? By the way, just before this, we started. Just before I pressed record today, Tomo and I were talking about a mutual friend of ours called Adi. So, hello, Adi. How's it going? And he was saying that Hindi.
Yeah, he's Indian, right?
Yeah, he's Indian, right? So, like, Hindi shares some similarities in a grammatical way to Japanese. Because I'd also noticed that I've met a lot of Indian people in Japan who speak like amazing Japanese. I was like, where did you go to school? And he goes, oh, it's easy. So yeah, have you heard about that? Like Turkish and Finnish being similar grammar?
In linguistics, we have this term called chance resemblance.
Right.
Two languages can be similar for just completely for coincidence. So we can't easily assume that if just because two languages are similar, they're genetically affiliated.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Korean, we still don't know. There are many hypotheses.
Yeah, right.
Turkish, sure, it's similar, but we have this theory called universal grammar as well.
Yeah. Right.
So human languages can be similar. Every language has nouns.
Right,
Is
yeah,
that because they're related? We don't know.
Right.
So, yeah. So what did we get into genetic affinity? It's
So genetic affinity. So we went off on a massive tangent. We were talking about you actually, sorry, you were saying that you actually grew up in France and the UK.
I was born in Japan, but did grow up in exclusive Japanese communities.
Yeah. Right.
Outside Japan, in Europe to be specific,
right.
and we have Japanese schools there.
Yeah.
I went to a Japanese boarding school in England.
Yeah.
Although I don't sound like I used to live in England. For 6 years actually. Had apple crumble every Thursday. Weetabix every day. That's the only thing I had access to. Yeah, I always looked at Japan from outside point of view, but I was always in the Japanese community. So yeah, that's part of the reasons why I got interested in linguistics, I'm sure.
And then you pursued linguistics to a master's degree.
It's not the linguistics doesn't make much money by itself.
Right.
It's fun though. It's just fascinating.
It's super interesting.
Yeah.
So this is Learn Japanese Pod, and you used to teach Japanese. Were there any common mistakes that foreigners make when they're learning Japanese?
Well, so when someone learns a second language, a foreign language, this thing called first language transfer occurs.
Right.
Where your target language that you're trying to speak is influenced by your first language. So that's why Japanese people say things like, I don't know, did you drink your pills?
Yeah, right.
Japanese people.
Right. Did you drink your pills?
Did you fix your schedule? Which means did you finalize your schedule?
Yeah, right.
This file is too heavy to download.
Yeah.
That's the first language transfer.
Or one I've heard a lot. You have a high nose, Alex.
Yeah, hi.
You have a high nose, which in Japanese.
Yeah, my apologies for repeated.
No, not at all.
On behalf of my people.
You have this thing called language transfer.
Yeah.
First language transfer. And you're kind of thinking in your language and making these mistakes, right?
Yeah, exactly. Especially when you're a grown up.
Right.
So the common mistakes depend on the first language of the learner. But if Korean speakers have very hard time distinguishing ka and ga word initially.
Interesting.
And ta and da, they would go like taigakusei for daigakusei, college student. Sounds like a kicked out student. Taigakusei with a T.
Taigaku, right. Yeah, I got kicked out of college, right?
Yeah, but for English speakers, one of the most common, I shouldn't say mistakes, but errors, systematic errors, is the overusage of personal pronouns.
Yes.
Yeah, if you listen to Japanese people talking to each other between native speakers, you don't really hear much anata, watashi, kare, those words. But it's very difficult to think outside the box of your first language.
Of course.
So you end up using like a lot of personal pronouns than native speakers do.
I've noticed that a lot with friends who have maybe just come to Japan and they're really learning Japanese and say, "Watashi wa ginko ni ikimasu." And you said, no, you can just say, "Ginko ni ittekuru."
Right.
And I said, wait, who's going to the bank? I said, well, it depends on the context.
Exactly, Alex, yes.
And a really good explanation. This is the best explanation I heard, and this is really for kind of English speakers who are learning Japanese. So the big problem is we tend to think as English speakers Japanese is super vague because they don't use pronouns so much, so we don't know who's doing what. But the thing is, they say it's all about the context. What's the context? You are the context. Right? And I was like, oh, I see. So instead of saying watashi wa ginko e ikimasu, you just say ginko ni iku or ginko ni ikimasu.
Right.
You the speaker going to the bank.
English sentences like "my head hurts" is weird. Of course, you can't feel other people's pain. Of course it's your head that hurts.
Right.
It
hurts.
Sounds a little redundant, but it's a mandatory word in English. So you don't say "watashi no atama ga itai."
Right.
Of course, it's your head. Right. So that's one mistake, and I think the word "anata" or "kimi," which is often translated as you, is not used like the word you in English. Like I would never call, for example, my mother anata or kimi. That I think she would cry if I addressed her as you.
It's kind of I don't know, abrupt or frank or just weird. It just sounds weird, right?
This usually okay. So if I'm to talk about the word anata, it's when native speakers use the word anata, one most common usage is a boss or a teacher scolding a student or subordinates. It sounds a little condescending.
Yeah.
Anata. And very old-fashioned wife addresses their husband.
The husband,
as anata. Yeah.
Yeah. I have like watched, anime and TV dramas where the wife says, "Anata."
Yeah.
You
See, they're old, right? So stereotypically, you don't see very young people saying that. Yeah, yeah. People ask me, what should I use instead?
Yeah.
I would say don't.
Yeah, right.
Use anything. Or
Right.
if you really, if the context requires you to specify the person who you are talking to, just say the person's name or the person's occupation, like sensei or.
Right. Sensei, どこに行きますか?
It
Yes.
depends
Yeah.
on the relationship between the speaker and the addressee.
Right.
So that's the hard part, maybe. Japanese is said to be a very context dependent language, but that also means the language is simple.
Yes.
You just don't say things that don't need to be said.
I think that's part of the beauty of Japanese. There's this kind of beautiful efficiency to it.
Yeah, so it's a simple language. So you already mentioned so far the three biggest things that learners of Japanese dread about, which is particles, kanji, particles, keigo, the polite language,
yeah,
and the
absolutely.
counters.
And the counters.
Yeah, but those four are just unimportant peripheral part of Japanese.
Don't you think that a lot of the time native speakers will drop particles, right? So
Yeah.
So instead of saying, like keiki o taberu or keiki o tabeta, you just say keiki tabeta.
Yeah,
It's fine.
cake doesn't eat you. A cake doesn't eat you. Of course, you eat the cake. Like Alex sushi tabeta. Alex doesn't get eaten by a sushi.
Sushi ni taberareta. Yeah, right.
Well,
Sushi,
yeah, that'll be surreal.
sushi ga tabeta.
Yeah, but we would understand. We would just correct it.
Shall I just call this today's podcast "Cake Doesn't Eat You"?
Please feel free to.
Well, okay, let's move on to another topic, which is culture and language, right? So, as I said before, Tom has got a really super interesting Twitter feed. This tweet you tweeted the other day is absolutely fantastic. It's actually pinned at the top of your feed. Very interesting, and it's very simple. What Japanese people say and what they mean, okay? So here's how we might do this. Tomo, you read, if you be kind enough to read the Japanese, then I'll read the translation, and then you say what it really means, okay? Does that make sense?
Okay. 顔小さいですね。顔小さいですね。
顔小さいですね, which literally means you have a small face. Sounds pretty mean, doesn't it? But actually,
It doesn't.
what does it mean?
Well, you're beautiful, and I wish I looked like you.
Yeah.
I wish my face was smaller.
When you're learning a new language, you directly translate a noun or an adjective into the new language, thinking that it means exactly the same thing. So, or even a phrase. So, kao ga chisai, you have a small face, doesn't sound so flattering in English, but it's fine. It's actually a
And
compliment.
your nose is high.
Arik-san, 鼻高いですね. It's like, you have a high nose, you have a big nose. The first time I heard that, I was mortified. And then my friend said, no. What they
We
mean is
wish our noses were taller. Yes.
yeah, we wish we had a nose like that. They're just trying to be polite. Cool. What's the next one?
英語教えてください。英語教えてください。
So does that mean, please teach me English exactly?
Well, of course, it depends. But yeah, oftentimes it can mean, I want to be friends with you.
I've heard that. I've had this a lot. Oh, I'd love to study English. Maybe you can teach me one day. It just means, hey, let's hang out sometime.
Yeah. If you go like, okay, so what time? Tomorrow?
What time
about
do you
tomorrow?
have the English lesson?
Yeah, I charge 1,000 yen per hour. You shouldn't. That's a jerk reaction. Yeah.
That's the bad. That's the bad.
Right. I should add a jerk reaction to
The
this.
jerk reaction. Yeah. そうです。1時間1000円ですね。はい。
Yeah, that would be very mean.
1000円いただきます。
Because, Japanese people who say those should be a little more aware of how things are taken as well.
Absolutely.
I'm not blaming people who don't get what Japanese people mean. And I'm not justifying Japanese people saying those things.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so yeah, it's one example. 顔小さいですね. You have a small face, you can react, hey, you offended me.
Next one.
お箸使うの上手ですね. お箸使うの上手ですね.
You use chopsticks really well. I think some people might react to it slightly strangely. So if you're from, I don't know, San Francisco, it's like, yeah, of course I can use chopsticks. I've had Chinese food before. Well, what the hell are you saying?
I'm offended. You're racist.
Yeah, right. And these days people love to get really angry, don't they? What's another way you might interpret that?
I appreciate that you embrace our culture.
Very good.
They're just praising the way you use chopsticks because they appreciate it. They're happy that you're doing what they're doing. I understand it gets to you though. If people repeatedly praise your chopstick skills and your Japanese skills again and again, some people do call it microaggression, things like that. But you should understand what we come from.
Okay, how about the next one?
おいくつですか? おいくつですか? This I'm a little exaggerating here.
Of course,
just a disclaimer. Okay, how old are you? It can mean I don't want to be rude in case you're older than me.
When you meet Japanese people for the first time, definitely in a formal situation, there's a little bit of trying to work out, for want of a better word, your status or like where you're coming from, maybe how old you are, what your job is. And it's not so much they kind of sizing you up. It's just most people just don't want to be rude, and
right.
They don't want to address you in a way that's not fitting for your kind of social status, or something. They don't want to say something that's inappropriate.
Yeah, it comes from that. Of course, you don't. Even Japanese people are reluctant to ask how old the person they're talking to is. Yeah. But I think it comes out much easier than in English speaking context environment. Because you mentioned keigo, right? If you're talking to an older person, as a default, you are expected to use keigo. So depending on the age, your language, your verb endings change.
Yeah,
so you would like to know the social relationship.
Right.
With the person you're talking to be comfortably talking with the person.
One more interesting phrase, if you would, Akiyama Sensei.
Thank you. I love that when people call me that way. Anyway, okay, so 四季は日本だけですよね. 四季は日本だけですよね.
Only Japan has 4 seasons. Now, when you hear that, it might be a little confusing, but what's another way you might interpret that?
Japanese tradition puts a lot of emphasis on 4 distinct seasons.
Right. I think in Japanese culture, there's a very deep appreciation of nature. And there are many cultural events, festivals, times of year where nature is a central part of the cultural calendar, if you like. So, obvious example would be Hanami. So as the sakura trees are bursting into full bloom, they have parties under the trees. They call it the cherry blossom viewing party. I just like to call it beer in the park party. But what else?
Well, many countries do have those festivals. You have Easter, Christmas.
Sure.
It's a matter of degree. Yeah. We're not saying that Japan is the only country that has 4 seasons, but 4 distinct seasons. I think it's more true than in
absolutely
than in many countries. 4 distinct seasons, and we have. Yeah, I was talking about this with my Australian colleague earlier today, and he was like, "No, still." Japanese people think 4 seasons only exist in Japan. But we have those festivals, and we have like fall, autumn only chocolate. If you go to a convenience store, and we have haiku, which is a genre of poetry that's dedicated to 4 seasons.
Right.
I'm not saying 4 seasons only exist in Japan, But
It's deeply appreciated.
it's deeply appreciated. It's a matter of degree.
It's a matter of degree, yeah. Apparently, back in the day, maybe up until the 80s, people used to say, 太ってますね. Like, Tomo-san, 太ってますね. Oh, you're looking really fat. And the implication being, well, if you're fat, you have the means to be fat, meaning that you're doing well in business, that you're rich. It's a compliment. It's like, hey man, you're doing really well. But I mean, no one says that now. This is like back in, I don't know, maybe the 70s or the 80s.
But
perhaps?
still, I think the psychological barrier is lower in Japan. The threshold.
Yes.
It's, My mother has said, hey, you gained weight or you got a little fatter to my wife who is from the United States. She got extremely offended. Yeah, that's like the last thing you should say. But she was getting pregnant. So my mother was happy.
Yeah, right. It's like, I'm happy. It's like you're pregnant, and
So my advice is just don't translate into your own language and interpret it. That's one piece of advice I can give you.
Okay, so what we'll do a bit of a quick fire round here. So I sent an email out to our listeners and also tweeted to some of my followers that I'm interviewing you and ask your questions. We got an amazing response. So
thank you. ありがとうございます.
We've got quite a few emails here. Very interesting first email from Russell. He says, hello, Alex. I have known Tomo for many years and he's been a good friend. You have a fan here.
Sounds familiar. Okay.
Now this is interesting. He said he was my first male Japanese language teacher, which I think is really interesting.
Sorry. Yeah.
And that was when I was still struggling with the difference between men and women's speech patterns. Of course, this was back when he still lived in Houston, Texas. Interesting. Even now, we still keep in touch. I occasionally ask questions from the man known as Grammar Samurai.
Yeah, not grammar police, grammar Nazi, grammar samurai.
That's really cool. I like that one. Yeah, good. So, hey, Russell, thanks a lot for writing in. Next email is from Jean, and she says, what are your favorite places in Japan? And as a linguist, is there a Japanese word or particular linguistic issue that got you interested in? So,
oh man, I need another 2 hours to talk about the letter. Right. Favorite places in Japan.
Oh my gosh, where would you even start?
I think, Alex, you've been to more places than I have in Japan. I've never been to Kyushu. You lived in Kyushu. Kyushu's got great food that
amazing
I like.
Yeah.
Tokyo is good in a way because you can get, I like food. Okay. So you can get food from anywhere in Japan.
Yeah.
It's just they're expensive.
Yeah.
More expensive than getting them locally.
Sure.
So Tokyo is good. Yeah. Tokyo doesn't represent Japan though.
Yeah.
So.
And let me put in a plug for Miyazaki because we are drinking Hyuga Nobeoka beer, Miyazaki Hideji beer. It's really good, very kind of citrus. And this one is now we're drinking Izu Shuzenji.
Ah, okay. Been there. Shuzenji is nice. It's an onsen town, hot springs. Yeah, my favorite place I would say though would be Kitakamakura, the north Kamakura.
Yeah.
Kamakura is, as you know, it's a 12th century samurai capital of Japan. Wow. It's beautiful. It's historic. It's like less than an hour, about an hour from Tokyo. But Kitakamakura, the north Kamakura, is it's more Zen. That's where the samurais to meditate built temples. So. Yeah, it's not Japan 101 place, but Kita Kamakura is. I prefer cool. it because it's less touristy than Kamakura proper. Itself.
Yes. Oh, that's that's a really good.
I highly recommend it.
Oh, that's an excellent piece of advice. There you go, Kita Kamakura. Quick, as a linguist, is there a Japanese word or particular linguistic issue that got you interested in?
I don't know. I can go on and on about the difference between wa and ga particles.
Oh yeah.
As a linguist, oh boy, I don't know.
Wa and ga, you could write a whole book on that.
Oh yeah,
but don't get bogged down in the details. It's better to kind of learn it on a more on the level of a phrase or something, right?
Yeah, like, if you're trying to learn particles, I recommend that you learn phrases.
Yeah, cool. Absolutely. I totally agree.
You say konnichiwa, not konnichiga.
Konnichiwa. Right.
Well, but yeah, that's an extreme example. But
That's pretty good.
you would, phrases. Don't just learn the bricks. You would want to learn a small house with bricks that are already put together.
Don't you feel it's better to learn the phrases first and then work the grammar out later sometimes?
Yeah, exactly.
Don't you think so?
Yeah, like, don't you have that experience in English?
Yeah,
your first language?
Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, when I first moved to Japan, I taught English, and that's when I learned grammar because I had to. Because all the Japanese people. So, what is an intransitive verb? I'm like, What is the subjunctive tense? I'm like, So, this is stuff I learned later. Here's my advice. Sorry, I'm cutting in here, but learn Japanese so you can do stuff and then worry about the grammar later. So, like, what do you want to do? Do you want to take a taxi? Learn the Japanese to take a taxi. Shinjuku made onegaishimasu. Okay? What do you want to do? You want to buy a ticket for a bus? Just learn stuff that can allow you to do stuff. Worry about the grammar later. Anyway, that's all I'll say about that.
I do highly recommend those task-oriented learning.
Yeah.
Like, learning Japanese for the sake of learning Japanese it ends up in failure often. Yeah. Like, it can be anything. Watch anime, make girlfriend.
Yeah.
I don't know. Visit Japan and become friends with locals.
Get a girlfriend who likes anime.
Yeah.
We have a new question here from Chrissy. Chrissy says,
yes, thank you, Chrissy.
Chrissy says, very interesting question here. Said, I've been trying to find a word like nerd or geek in Japanese, but which has a positive connotation, unlike words like otaku.
A while ago, we talked about contexts.
Yeah.
Nerd, maybe not, but geek can be a positive word, right?
Sure.
Context.
Yeah.
If you're really proud of your gadget knowledge and someone calls you, wow, you're a geek.
Yeah.
You're proud.
Yeah.
Otaku too. Otaku, depending on the context, otaku can be a positive word.
Yeah.
So it's very common for women to find guys who are very passionate about what they like, sexy.
Yeah.
More sexier than guys with like without any hobbies or passion or ambition.
So they go. So they go. Just use otaku. It's fine.
Oftentimes, otaku is used as a suffix in Japanese now.
Yeah,
like anime otaku, or you can say beer otaku.
Beer
otaku. You know every craft beer out there.
Okay, thanks, Chrissy. Awesome question. Sean. Oh, this is a really deep one. The Japanese birth rate has been falling for many years. Last I checked, it's around 1 child per family on average. Number 1, what can Japanese society do to encourage more young Japanese people to get married and have children? 2, with the population decreasing, is there a solution to make it easier for more foreigners to have long-term work visas? Wow, that's a deep question.
I think Sean should talk to Shinzo Abe, the prime minister.
Yeah, absolutely.
Birth rate, yes, the birth rate isn't high here, but I think it's overplayed by the media. The media like to focus on falling Japanese birth rate. Just compare it to other developing nations.
Compare it to the UK. Compare it to most European nations.
Except France. Yeah.
Except France. Yeah. No, I mean maybe some European nations aren't as low as Japan, but they're not. They don't have a net increase in the birth rate, and a lot of the increase is actually due to immigration, right? Yeah, right.
Japan. I have 2 kids, by the way.
Yeah. How old are they?
3 years old and 3 months old.
Oh,
so
wow.
Four, I would say.
Wow.
Okay. Japanese society to encourage. Yeah. So do not believe some media reports saying Japanese men are going herbivore and marrying video game characters and sleep with anime, with a pillow with anime character printed on it. It's a myth. It's a good story. It's interesting.
It's a great story that gets clicks. But to be honest, this idea that declining birth rate story is always played because Japan is weird. It's not. It's no weirder than anywhere else in the world. And to be honest, like the birth rate is not that.
Yeah.
lower than other countries. Yeah.
They say we don't have sex, but did they go ask people, or did they think people give them a real, honest answer?
Yeah, it's this whole idea that we're not cut from the same cloth. It's like, come on,
Well, anyway, but yeah, to answer, to give a serious answer, yes, we're too busy. And women, guys work too. Well, both actually. Everybody works too much.
Yes.
Yeah, they're just too busy to do stuff, and it's also. Long working hours is one major factor.
Yeah, right.
Which is many companies are trying to solve that problem, and it's becoming increasingly uncool to stay in office and work till late. It's so 1980s thing to do. Well, if you just go up the Tokyo Tower Skytree and look at Tokyo at night, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Because people are working till late. Otherwise, the lights would be off.
Right. That's a brilliant point. So we've got another question from Marcus. He says, how good do I need to speak Japanese in order to work there for an extended period of time, say 2 to 5 years? And I would say, how well do I have to speak Japanese? God, I'm being such a jerk. Yes. Maybe you need to have some English lessons first. Marcus, I'm sorry. I'm being mean. Now, how well do you need to speak Japanese?
Good grammar samurai.
Yeah, good grammar samurai. Yeah, now I'm being the grammar Nazi. So... I guess the question is like, just for daily life, how well do you need to speak Japanese?
Yeah, if you're an excellent programmer, maybe you don't need to speak. If you can do what people need, no problem. But yes, usually working in Japan does require some proficiency in Japanese, and it's very hard to learn Japanese outside Japan where nobody speaks Japanese. To immerse yourself in Japanese speaking environment, because Japanese people overseas are either there to learn the language or they're already fluent in the local language. So they wouldn't even bother to speak Japanese with learners. Yeah, exactly. That's a dilemma. So I understand. Let's see,
let's just like daily life, like buying things and stuff.
Yes. Yeah, just don't be afraid of making mistakes. Yes, and do define your tasks that you want to complete. Yes, and do that in Japanese.
Yes, thank you. This is one of my one of the points I evangelize for, and it's like, look, don't learn everything. Be really specific with your goal. So I would say,
can I just remember one thing. When I was in junior high, I wanted to watch TV, but I was in France. I didn't understand French. I understand some English. Yeah. The only thing I could enjoy watching was Beavis and Butthead on MTV. So, but seriously, my task was to understand what they were saying. Yeah, it was pretty easy because their vocabulary is extremely limited.
Yeah, right. You ass munch.
Yeah, that's cool. So that was an easy task, and they repeat the same thing over and over, right? So I started from Beavis and Butthead level English. So
cool.
We wish we had an equivalent in Japanese.
This is going to sound really weird. The weather forecast.
Ah, okay. Yeah, repetitive.
Right, okay, why? It's repetitive. It uses the same grammar, or it uses the same vocabulary and phrases, and it's useful.
True. People talk about... Oh, and cooking shows.
Cooking shows, absolutely. Yeah, they're going to use the same verbs, chop this, cook this, do that. But going back to what you were saying before, Tom, I think this is a really key thing. And this is for you, Marcus. What's your goal? What specifically do you want to do? Work out what that is, and then learn the Japanese for that. So let's just say something vague like you want to survive in Japan on a day-to-day basis. Okay, buying stuff, directions, and asking basic questions. Just learn that, you'll be fine. But as you were saying, don't be afraid. Make mistakes. Just come over to Japan. We're waiting for you, Marcus. We have beers.
Beers.
Okay, so next question is from Rubik. He says, "Hey Alex, could you ask Akiyama-san?" I like that bit of respect there. What he thinks about Google Translate being used in Japan, usually the result of Japanese to English translation. It's seen as correct, even if it isn't, because they don't bother double checking. Could it be harming Japan more than it's helping it? Well, okay. Let's make that question a bit simpler. What do you think about Google Translate for English to Japanese, Japanese to English?
At the beginning, I mentioned that English and Japanese are very different.
Yes.
They can't be any more different. So it's hard for machines to understand what it means. Yeah, you may want to Google Translate my favorite phrases that we looked at earlier.
Right.
Anyway, so yes, translation, it helps. It's better than nothing, but it's not everything.
Yeah.
So if you just are aware that those word-to-word translation isn't what is supposed to be what it looks like, I think it can be helpful. But typically people who speak only one language, monolingual speaker, use Google Translate and they freak out. Yeah, because they don't know the target language.
Right.
So Google Translate, yes, sure. I do use it actually when I have to understand what someone is saying in Hindi but it should be word to word, not a full sentence. Not yet. Right. It's getting better with artificial intelligence and big data, but I would recommend using it for words.
A couple more questions from Twitter. Jay Hawkinson says, looking forward to this episode. My question, favorite and least favorite things about Twitter?
Okay. All right. It's not about Japanese.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. We have this Twitter jargon in Japanese called kusoripu. Kusoripu. Crap replies. Kusoripu. I'm not saying his reply is. It's a pretty good question.
Yeah.
Kusoripu is things like when you just tweet like, I enjoy drinking beer, you get how dare you drink beer? Alcohol is evil, or I'm offended because I have liver disease, or I don't know, and very strange crap. Replies.
It's I think this seems to be like a global phenomenon. Everything's a problem. Everyone's angry.
Yeah.
Right, and it's somewhere in the world, someone is angry at you for just who you are. And if you mention anything, it can be taken the wrong way.
I think they're bored.
That you have too much time on your hands. Kusoripu.
Well, kusoripu. I shouldn't.
That's great.
Well, I shouldn't say that.
And last question from Japanaya. And she says, I have a BA in linguistics. I'd like to know what his MA thesis was about and where he went for his degree.
I think she would be the only one who enjoys my answer. My master's thesis was actually about spelling English words in katakana. So I had my Japanese learners, American learners of Japanese, spell English words in katakana. You get all kinds of interesting errors, and I analyze them, and they do get better as their levels get high. For example, McDonald's obviously is McDonaldo to our ears. We can mold the English sounds into Japanese sounds very easily. It's just intuitive to us. But they have such a hard time. They would go like Burger King or McDonaldo or Burger King and McDonald's. It's just very difficult for them. So I analyzed it.
Your knowledge of Japanese, obviously the more knowledge you have, the better you'd be at katakanarizing. Dare I say English
Katakanization, yes. Katakanization is very important because we earlier we talked about Japanese being a mishmash. We have a lot of borrowings from English words. If you read software manual, you would see icon or double click shite. It's just.
Actually, at the moment, I'm helping to translate a technical manual.
Are you?
And I would say a good, 20 to 30% is katakana.
Yeah.
Iconをダブルクリックしてインストールしてください or whatever. Yeah, it's just like the Japanese is purely used just for the grammar.
Right,
and everything else is like katakana. The going the other way, I always warn Japanese people about katakana being your false friend, so that they will use a katakana word in English thinking that it has a meaning that's actually different from the original English. So, for example, a slightly more esoteric katakana word would be like naibu. Kanojo wa naibu. So,
Okay.
so in English, naive means that you're, I don't know, what does it mean? You're slightly ignorant of the world in a bad way, and maybe you're easily fooled by things. The Japanese for that would be seken shirazu. But
Right.
in Japanese, naibu means, I don't know, kind of like you're sensitive or you have a delicate appreciation of stuff.
Oversensitive.
Oversensitive. Yeah. I mean, it's not 100% positive, but
It's semantic drift.
Semantic drift.
Linguists
Interesting.
call semantic
There
drift.
you
It often happens in loan words.
Yeah.
Like, say, look at the English word karaoke. Karaoke.
right. Karaoke.
What American Southerners like my wife would imagine as karaoke is very different from what we picture as karaoke. Yeah, not one of those big hall and divorced people singing "I Will Survive," and it's not karaoke that we know. And also hentai. Hentai is it's different in Japanese. So
Let me ask you one final question. There was a big kerfuffle over Ghost in the Shell, namely that a white actress was used to portray the leading
Scarlet,
the heroine of the movie, being that it was called, I don't know, whitewashing. So the complaint was that there are a lot of stories where the leading protagonist is Asian, but they swap it with a Caucasian actor. And what the hell's up with that? Now, what did you think about that whole thing?
Japanese people are not offended. I wasn't offended either. It's not about white being white or Asian. It's just either is fine. But I think the loud minority is making the problem bigger.
Right.
I understand where they come from. They are whitewashing it, but it's an anime.
I totally agree with you. And actually, there was this really interesting YouTube video. I'll put a link to it. Where was it that guy Kenta? I think Japanese guy went around interviewing Japanese people.
Yeah. It's an excellent YouTube channel.
It's a really good YouTube channel because he went up to Japanese people in the street and said, "Okay, so there's this Ghost in the Shell
the courage
thing."
to do that. Yeah.
No, he's a brave man. And what do you think? And everyone was like, "Oh, she's kind of beautiful and it's anime. She's cute. Yeah, it's awesome." And they were overwhelmingly positive. So it's an interesting take on that.
Yeah,
whole
especially
thing.
in the United States, everything tends to become about race.
Yes.
And I understand how Asian Americans they have been through a lot.
Yeah,
and
of course.
Again, it's about not translating directly to your own language.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, I think we should stop. I think that's the key takeaway.
Yeah, that's right.
Don't translate directly. It's not the same. Yeah?
Right. No, there's no one-to-one correspondence between your own language and Japanese.
Absolutely. Well, Tomo, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you for the beer. Yeah.
You can check out Tomo's Twitter feed at twitter.com/TomoAkiyama. And anything else you want to kind of promote or talk about?
No.
That's
I'm a PR guy, so I don't like promotions.
It's like, let's not
Yeah,
talk.
but I want to promote Japan. Thanks. Yeah, I would like to thank everyone for believing, liking Japan, believing in this country. We have issues, but we need you guys. We need you guys to talk about Japan and please let us be part of your conversations.
Oh, thank you so much, Tomo, because Learn Japanese Pod is just about taking the best bits of Japan and showing people, So, hey, thanks so much. And let's do this again with beers next time. ありがとうございます。
ありがとうございます。